We got somebody very, very special on the phone. Ma, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Oh, hey, what's up? This is Heather B. Thank you so much for having me today.
Definitely. It's a pleasure and it's an honor. It's all ours. So we'll go ahead and get started. A lot of people know Heather B from The Real World, the first season, basically the blueprint of television reality shows. But before that, you were actually down with Boogie Down Productions. Is that correct?
Absolutely. The whole Boogie Down production thing came about in college. I actually went to college with Kenny Parker, who is KRS-One's brother.
Yeah.
Kenny and I were friends in college, and Chris actually came to my college to do a show. And from there, we started talking. I was one of the people who helped promoted the show. So from there, we started talking, and he was starting a label, and things just happened from there. It was crazy. I mean, it definitely didn't happen overnight because I called him 50 million times and met him and tried to meet up with him in the studio for hours and hours and hours. But it was one of those things where it was a pay your due process, you know, just paying my dues back then. So yeah, my BDP days were definitely appreciated.
that is, I didn't realize that y'all knew each other in college. As far as like music goes and rhyming and everything, how involved were you in it like prior to that?
Just locally. It was just something that I kind of did. Growing up in New Jersey, it wasn't a big hip-hop scene. Being so close to New York, you would think it was, but it really wasn't a big hip-hop scene in terms of artists coming out of New Jersey. I mean, we had, I'm going way back, we had like Chill Rob G
yeah.
and, you know, Queen Latifah and, you know, the whole Double X posse and things like that coming out of New Jersey way back when. But it wasn't really a big push for New Jersey artists back then. So it kind of helped me out a lot being associated with Boogie Down Productions and the prominence that KRS had at that time, you know, in the industry, because that sort of put me like right in, because he would bring me out on stage, he took me out on tour, you know, and I kind of just honed my skills in terms of an artist with him, you know, just having that time and spending with him. It wasn't until a couple of years actually after with him. I started with Chris in 1990. It wasn't until 92 when I did The Real World. So it was, you know, a year and a half with Chris, and then I went into The Real World. So a lot of people didn't even understand sort of like where I came from musically. And it's funny, auditioning for Real World, they had no clue, you know, as to the whole Boogie Down production movement whatsoever. So when those two worlds actually collided, it was crazy.
Dude, I mean, I guess in a sense, you introduced BDP to more of a mainstream audience. I mean, they are legends, and, you know, hip-hop heads and stuff are very familiar with them, but white girls in college that were obsessed with The Real World when it came out had no clue. Do you ever get recognition or props for that, kind of bringing them to a bigger, more mainstream audience at the time?
Well, no, not really. And Chris did his groundwork. I mean, only when the people who were sort of like really, really into Real World started to ask, you know, like, what happened, where did it all come from, then they started to dive in a little bit deeper and just understand all the work he had put in and the legendary status he was at even way back then, you know. So I definitely couldn't take no BDP credit whatsoever, but it was just weird, like, you know, because on the show it was just like, okay, we have the model, the dancer, the girl from the country, and the rapper, and people just think, oh, I fell out the sky, but no, I was putting my work in for some time. It's just that KRS-One was the featured artist, and, you know, that was his group. And, you know, you got to pay your dues back then. It was a whole different kind of scene. You had to pay your dues. So, nah, it was fun, kind of just letting people know that MTV didn't find me on a corner, you know, rapping for food. It wasn't like that.
well, I guess for those that are unaware, like, kind of explain, I guess, the process. You go from Jersey to being in college to being down with BDP. How did you get involved with MTV in The Real World?
Actually, I had my manager at the time. You talk about going back at artists. My manager at the time was Special Ed, who made I Got It Made. Yeah. That was his manager as well. She was my manager, actor Omar Epps' manager, as well as Special Ed. And Special Ed was the one who was going to audition for it. I happened to be in the office at the time when he was going to audition, and she just kind of looked up and was like, Heather, you know what? You have a lot of personality. You should go to this audition too. I was like, what is it? She was like, I don't know, some kind of documentary they're looking to film for people that live in the area, arts. I was like, all right, cool. And I actually went with special ed.
Wow.
And I ended up getting it, and he didn't. How crazy, because they were actually looking for a male rapper. And what's so funny about it back then, again, you're talking about 1992.
Yeah.
They weren't even aware of the whole female rapper movement. They didn't even understand that culture, or that subculture, I should say, of it. They just kind of were looking for a rapper. They didn't even think about a female artist. You know, there was Salt Pepper, there was Queen Latifah, there was MC Light, you know, there was Yo-Yo, but they didn't see it as all of these. They didn't even know all these female artists were even out. When they heard rapper, they just automatically thought male.
Yeah.
So when I walked into audition, it was sort of a shock to them, even what was going on. So it was crazy, you know. It was kind of crazy back then, but it was good because I had no idea either that, you know, it was the first time that had ever been done. They were only looking for 6 people initially. 2,000 people ended up auditioning, and they ended up picking 7. So,
wow.
You know, it was from the man upstairs, as I always say. I take nothing for granted. It was definitely from the man upstairs.
Wow, that's crazy. And we've actually, shouts out to Special Ed. We've had him on the program before. That's a really good dude right there. I had no idea about that. Now on the show, you spent a lot of time in the recording booth. You spent a lot of time working on material, but it wasn't until what, 96 till the album came out?
Yeah, because the ironic thing, you talk about MTV, the crazy thing, after doing a show like that, MTV wasn't all that excited to promote artists. They weren't excited because they sort of just saw me as, and some of the other people, just as talent. Like you're a cast member on a TV show, promote the television show. We're not here to promote your career per se. That's what you have to do outside of it. So they initially didn't add my videos. They didn't do a lot, and it sort of just kind of put a whole sour taste in my mouth about the industry. Period. You know, that was sort of like my first introduction to like the music business side of it, and I actually just left it alone after that. You know, so that was the lull actually between me coming off the Real World. And then 2 years later is when I wrote All Glocks Down. Yeah. But the album didn't come out that followed that until 2 years after, because All Glocks Down was initially released independently. Yeah. Kenny Parker and I went into the studio with like literally a couple of $100, and was like, Kenny came to me and was like, yo, I was at my shop at the time, and I opened up a hair and nail salon and just totally moved away from the industry. And he came to the shop one day and was like, yo, I got this track you should listen to. And I wrote it, we went in and just started mailing it out. That's when you had to mail out records. Yeah, so we literally started mailing it out from there.
So All Glocks Down almost didn't even happen.
No, All Glocks Down, it was sort of like, he just was like, I don't really think you should spend most of your time in the hair salon, but my hair and nail salon was very successful. He was like, I know you're sick of the industry already, because again, I went from Boogie Down Productions to the Real World to, you know, just kind of being thrown into this whole thing after doing Real World to like, well, your video's not added to MTV, the label's not being excited about that. I was like, you know what, this is crazy. This is not what I was doing music for. Yeah. And just pulled away until, like I said, so he came with the track for All Glocks Down, and it kind of just rolled from here. And you know, working it independently initially was crazy too, because we just mailed it out. And I actually went back to college because I didn't finish college when I met Kenny. But I went back to college while I opened up my hair and nail salon. And I literally remember sitting in class and you know, my phone just going off. Yeah. Because he was calling like, yo, we just got a big order. We have to go try to find a distribution deal. Yeah. And that was from All Glocks Down. So that's how the whole deal started from here.
Wow. Well, I'm very happy that happened, because I absolutely love that record.
Well, thank you. You happy? I'm happy too.
Well,
I was happy too.
for obvious reasons. Now, like you were explaining about going back to school and starting your own business and everything in between the program and the debut album. But then by the time Eternal Affairs drops, there's still another gap in time. Why so many gaps in between albums, being such a talented artist as you are?
Well, thank you for saying that. But one of the things that I don't really know if people know or not, or even matters, because the game is so crazy like that. But I write, you know, every single song, every single thing.
Yeah.
You know, I write my hooks, all of that. So I have to be in the mood to do an album.
I see.
And for whatever time that may take in terms of me writing songs and stuff, I'll take responsibility for that, because I do write, and I have to be in the mood to write and record. But some of it too has been just like the overall industry. Like I just, you know, it happens. People don't want to sign you. People don't want to release your record. And what people don't know is that one of the records that got overlooked, because after taking my album, I did a few singles after that, but then I released in 1998 a song called Do You. Which ended up, it's so funny to me every time I hear people say, you know, do you, I'm doing me, I'm doing you. Well, that, from that song, where people just picked up that phrase, so to speak, where that phrase was coined, it's like, that, I got another deal from that record, from the single Do You in 98.
Okay.
That started to get crazy. I was, you know, and I was just like, you know what, this is not what I want to go back into again. So I toured most of the time. I was doing shows, I was doing lectures, I was doing a bunch of stuff. But I had to just sort of rethink about, you know, my whole direction with it. So when people ask me how come Eternal Affairs is so different from Taking Mine, it's just your natural growth and your natural process as an artist, and just kind of, you know, just getting a dose of the industry and seeing how it is. I just wrote about it and was honest about, you know, how I felt.
Definitely. A duo, kind of to switch gears a little bit, a group that you work with, one of the most underrated duos in my opinion, Brownville's very own M.O.P. You actually did a record with them, correct?
Yeah, well, DJ Premier hooked that up. I was a fan of M.O.P's for a long time in New Jersey, and where I'm from, and so working at a D&D Studios when I was recording and taking my album, I had no way of getting in touch with M.O.P. So Kenny Parker suggested, you know, that I start asking around, and so I went to DJ Premier, who actually came up to me and was like, yo, Heather, what's up? You know, yo, you dope. We should work together one day. I was like, are you kidding me? Of course we should work together one day. But I need a favor. Do you know M.O.P.? So he actually made that connection. So that's how that whole thing came about. And I met with them one day, just told them I was fans of their music. They was like, oh my gosh, you're the girl from the TV show, from that Real People show. So it was weird. Like, they kind of knew me from music too, but then they kind of, you know, knew me from the show. So it just kind of happened. We actually did that song in a half hour. Like,
oh, wow.
Just sat in the studio and we just started talking, and they, you know, the whole concept came up because they didn't even understand how I was aware of their music.
Okay.
I was just like, you know, yo, what y'all talk about is what I like, and that's what I listen to when I'm home. They whole act like you want a confrontation in first part. So they was like, wow, the song just came from here, you know.
Wow.
Fame went first, Fame sort of set the tone, and we just all just went in from there. So, yeah, it was dope. I love working with them. I just performed with them sometime this year when DJ Premier and Freddie the Fox, Bumpy Knuckles put the album out together. We all got together, came out for that release and performed and stuff. So it's always good seeing them and catching up with them.
That is an amazing story. Also in the building, my brother DJ A to the L. He wanted to add some stuff to the interview.
What's up, Heather? What's going on?
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
I'm good. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, and it's pretty nice timing that you brought up Primo. A lot of people sleep on Kenny Parker as a producer. What's the difference between working with someone who's kind of like low-key, under the radar, production-wise, like Kenny, versus like a high-profile producer like Primo?
It's much harder working with Kenny. It's very meticulous working with Kenny, just in terms of the studio one-on-one. Preem is hard catching up with him. It's kind of different. They work different. Preem gives you a CD or emails you tracks. If you like them, he allows me to just go in and write. I record, and he mixes from there. Kenny sits in with you in the studio. He's very meticulous. He stands over you, lyrically. It's just a whole different process. Like, working wise, I'd rather work the way Preem works, the way Kenny works, and people are normally surprised by that. But I think they're both really, really talented. In fact, I was talking to Kenny Parker a little while ago, and I told him that I was jumping on the phone to do an interview in a little bit. I said, "Yo, I'm gonna get you on the three-way if your name comes up." I actually said that to him. So thank you for asking about him. He's very, very talented, and but he's a beast working with in the studio. He's very meticulous, but working with him like that brought out some of my best music. So it works both. It works different ways with different producers. You have to adjust accordingly.
Right. Okay.
Definitely. Now, I'm curious. Are we gonna get anything new from you, music-wise, anytime in the near future? Because I feel like you're like such an important MC in the game. Like, you're just so. I feel like you're detrimental to it. Like, very underrated. I whenever they make those stupid top 10 lists and stuff, and you're not on it, I think it's just an injustice to see things like that. So, me as a fan, I would like to know, like, when are you gonna put anything out?
That's thank you first of all for the words, but I started working on a project 2 years ago. It's so funny now when you ask me about the years, because I always seem to be on like this 2 year whatever hiatus thing from time to time. But I released a single called Dreamer last year, and then and that whole project was executive produced by Premier. We got on the phone one day. He called me and was like, "What are you doing? You need to do music. I'll executive produce your project, blah, blah, blah." So, Primo, Pete Rock, Large Professor, Kenny Parker, all of them came in and gave me tracks for this particular record. So we started the record last year and got about 10 tracks in. And then some opportunities started happening for me outside of music. And then I started, actually started doing radio. Which full-time with Sway. So that kind of just changed everything. A couple of weeks ago, Preem came, back in town. He was on tour. He came back in town and just was like, "Yo, we have to get finished." So I'll be finishing up in the next couple of months and just knocking it out. I do want to put an album out next year in 2013. Okay. Just because I just feel I want to. I'm in the mood to put it out. The business side of it, it is what it is. Yeah. But I do want to put put an album out musically, definitely.
Now, when you look at your production credits, you got people like you said, Primo, Kenny Parker. You got the Beat Miners. You got Pete Rock. You work with a definitive who's list already. Is there anybody in the future that you're looking to want to work with? If you could have a producer like a Dream collabo or something you got in the works or anything like that?
You know what's funny? Like, as much as I love like Kanye as a producer, I would work with a artist that is not a producer that's not out there. Like, the process to me is always good. Yeah. Like I love the process of making and recording music, and I like working with different producers. As I said, the difference between, like, when I was in the studio with Pete Rock, it was unbelievable because he's so laid back and he's so chill. He is in the studio with you as well, but he's so laid back and he's so chill, and he just kind of interjects a little bit back and forth, but it makes you a better artist to me. I love Ninth Wonder as well, you know, in terms of a producer. So I just like working with different producers because I think it makes you better as an artist, you know, overall. And it helps with your collaborations with other MCs too. So, I do like, I do like a whole host of different producers, but I'm just sort of open to work with a lot of different people, in terms of producers, because you never know what may happen when you get in that studio,
Yeah, Yeah, definitely. One thing you had touched on a few minutes ago, you said now you're doing radio, and now, I mean, you're not just doing radio. You're on one of the biggest morning shows on satellite radio for hip hop. How did that even come about?
If I told you, I feel like you, y'all are pulling out stories that I haven't even. These are my journal stories.
Yeah.
Stuff that I come home and write about at night. Literally, as a bet. Well, not a bet, but a joke. A friend of mine said to me, "You know what, Heather? You should go to bartending school." I was like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, you should go to bartending school and start like this whole celebrity bartending thing." She's like, "You know, you're always giving parties and you're always doing stuff." And I was like, "You know what? It sounds cool." So I did that. Like, I literally went to bartending school, got licensed as a certified mixologist, and started a residency in Harlem. Just so happened it wasn't too far from where Sway lived.
Okay.
So Sway would come in to where I was and just sort of sit down and have drinks, and we would talk. And it was one thing that led to the next. Like, it started out as a weekly segment called Straight Up with No Chaser, where I would have these situations and real stories that people would tell me while I was at the bar.
Okay.
He added that to his show as a weekly segment, and then opportunity opened up for the on-air co-host, and he was like, "Yo, you need to come do this." So
wow.
I can't even, again, and mind you, it's not that I didn't have any radio experience, because for some time ago, Mr. Walt and I from the Beat Miners, we did Spit Kicker Radio on XM. Yeah. So, but I only did that for a year. But with Sway and this opportunity, you have no idea. Like, it's a blessing. I definitely love it. But it came, again, like the real world, or like KRS-One, or like All Blocks, that have kind of been a story of my life. It came like in a very unorthodox way, and it's been crazy. Like, you know, I can't even believe it. Like, but it's been crazy, and I literally love it. So part of that as well has sort of been the timing thing. You know, I just don't have the same kind of time to go in and record. And I'm one of those people. Actually, I learned from Chris Rock, who just was like, you know, if you're going to do one thing, you should focus on that at the time. Don't try to do too many things at once. Okay. So I'm not like doing radio in the morning and then right after the show running in the studio. You know, for me, writing is important, and I like to take my time doing it.
Definitely. One thing, this is actually a little bit of a ploy. I was going to ask you to marry me during this interview, but then I was heartbroken, and this might be a rumor because it was just something I saw while I was just looking up stuff and doing some research just to kind of get brushed up to make sure I had a well-educated interview. Are you married to Horace from Bravehearts?
Well, why was you going to ask me to marry you? What was it about me that did you want to get married?
Because I'm in love with you.
You got a thing for female MCs?
I just think that Heather B is just amazing. That's why. I just think you're amazing.
What's your credit look like? You got good credit?
I do not. I'm like the only
I am married though. Very happily married. That's not something that I necessarily talk about a lot. Just because it doesn't really come up. But I am very, very happily married. I've been married for 11 years. Actually. Wow. I don't have any children, but I am very, very happily married. And it's not like I don't, like I said, it's not like I don't like talking about it. It's just not something that comes up very often.
I understand. That breaks my heart, though, so I just want to go ahead and put that on record.
Well, you know what? You kind of, your credit thing wasn't too good, but, you know.
I'm like one of like 3 white people in America with bad credit, so.
What happened, man? What was going on with you? Was it college that did it?
That's exactly what did it. I had a dream of getting a degree, and it hurt my credit score very badly.
That's what usually does it. Don't worry. That's what usually does it. No, but it's all good. Like I said, it's not something that I try to hide. It's just it doesn't come up very often.
I understand. So when we were talking about the real world, somebody on the program that you were really good friends with was the white girl. Her name was Julie, correct?
Yeah.
As far as her, and I know like Kevin Powell was on there, who's a huge hip hop advocate, and some of the other ones like Norm and I can't even remember everybody that was on the cast, but do you still keep in contact with them? I guess this is like 20 years after the program.
I keep in touch with every single person on my cast except for Eric. Eric was the model.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him or spoken to him in a long time, which is kind of weird. Like, I see Eric on television. I haven't seen him in a really long time. Since one of the reunion shows, since the last reunion show, which was probably 10 years ago. But everybody else, yeah, when they come into town, they stay with me.
Oh, wow.
At my house. If I happen to go out to L.A., I stayed at Norman's house. Julie, when she got married, I was, the maid of honor at her wedding. You know,
wow.
So it wasn't a fake kind of thing. You know,
Yeah.
It was definitely real friendships got formed, and sometimes we just call each other literally and laugh.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to not laugh when you look back at this point and just see everything that happened since. You go into some office and they tell you, okay, we're going to shoot a documentary with 7 strangers.
Yeah.
And just kind of see what's happening 20 years later and what has happened. So, it's been weird. We do have to laugh, and I have a sister that just turned 21 who Kevin Powell spoke at her college.
Oh,
and,
wow.
She was on the board that brought him there. Had no idea how impactful the Real World was, because she said that she started watching when it was like Tech or Hawaii. I just shook my head. I was like, come on, yo, you gotta know your history. You can't be doing me like that. So she said she called me to ask me, was it okay to introduce herself to Kevin Powell? And she did, and Kevin just laughed and ended up making her stand up in the middle of his lecture and telling everybody, that's Heather B's sister, and I did The Real World with his sister. She said, I can't even walk around school anymore. Like, everybody asked about you, even my professors. And so it's kind of cool in that way, just for it to all come back around. And, my nieces and nephews, my brothers and stuff, they have kids, and that part of it is really cool, and it's just something I'm grateful for, you never know. You don't go into things like that and think 20 years later it would still even matter,
Yeah.
But it literally changed the way we look at television now.
Nice. Heather B, the woman that can do almost any and everything, from styling hair to mixing your drink to hosting your radio to working with legendary producers.
Yes.
So what's the future look like for Heather B? What's going on?
I have a lot of things going on, just in terms of media and radio and music and the bartender thing, just in stemware lines, and it's been a lot. Like, when I tell you, it's just been a really big blessing. It's just been a blessing. So those are my immediate plans. When I say that, within the next year or two, just working on that, and just keep being honest about what I do.
Definitely.
Having an opportunity now to talk to so many different new artists on the radio side of it. I don't necessarily listen to them lyrically, so to speak, but one of the things that I will say is that I respect their hustle.
Yeah.
Just the hustle of it. And it's something that it keeps me mindful of, just, being honest about what you're doing and being passionate about what you're doing. So I just keep that at the heart. So I'm excited. I'm still at that place where I can say, thank God, I'm excited about what I'm doing. And, it's just keeping and still staying grounded at the same time. So I appreciate it. Hopefully when I'm down your way, you guys are in Florida, right?
Yeah, Tallahassee.
Yeah, hopefully when I'm down, I would love to sit down. I know this is radio and it's fast interview, but just sit down and we go out for a drink or something, my treat, and we just sit down and talk a little bit more. I'm always, hip-hop is what I love. It's how I got started, so I'm always down to, talk hip-hop at any given time, so it's cool.
That is the greatest thing I've ever heard.
It's just honest, I do love it. And like I said, it's funny because I was talking to, what's his name? Gosh, I feel Trinidad James last week. And, I told him, when you get to the point in your career, because he started to say he just started rapping like 11 months ago, 9 months ago. And I told them, you'll understand some things as your career grows. You'll start to understand when you get into that second phase of it all. But people was calling and not saying good stuff about them. And
yeah.
I told them, you gotta do what you gotta do. But I appreciated his hustle, so
Definitely.
I'm staying on that for now.
Definitely, and I really appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time and talking to us tonight. I was very nervous to talk to you this week. That's why I kind of harassed you with so many emails to make sure that we were still going to have it.
That's so funny. You were very respectful,
Yes.
and I appreciated that. That's why I was happy to do it. And a lot of times people stray away because you did say, you had a certain kind of show or whatever. But I love that era of music where I started out. And not that I can't listen to anybody else, but when I see Digging in the Crates, that's what's up. It just reminds me of the time where my initial hustle started. And so I'm always happy to talk, and you were very respectful, so it wasn't harassing, it wasn't none of that. and you had a marriage proposal ready for me, so
Yes.
it's all good.
Yes, definitely.